Welcome in, folks. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming. We are here live on Twitch right now, interviewing the one and only Crazy, who just hit #1 in the world. It is the first, well, actually, no, second week of April in 2024. We are post the death of Thanos, or so we thought. Guess what? The deck that made it to #1 in the world is a Thanos deck, even after getting the Quicksilver treatment, even after having the Time Stone changed and the Mind Stone and all of the stones changed. There is still a deck taking people to #1 in the world. And Crazy, who is here with us on voice right now, all the way from Russia, at the moment, to talk through how he got to #1, talk about the deck in particular. So Crazy, welcome into the channel. I'm very honored that you responded to being a part of this conversation today. So why don't you, first and foremost, just introduce yourself and let people know about your experience with Marvel Snap and maybe just gaming in general.
Hello, I'm playing Marvel Snap maybe more than 1 year
Okay.
from start. Prefer Thanos.
Thanos
Last
all day.
month, yeah, I finished last season top 1 with Thanos too.
Mm-hmm.
My decks change second time with Thanos changes. Prefer play with Lockjaw, but now Lockjaw suck. I try discard Thanos with Lockjaw, but it's trash too. I took Infinity with Loki, but after I took Infinity, it's too hard to play Loki because too much Mobius, too much Hela, like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to build another deck with Thanos. And Corvus deck, it's very good.
Yeah. Corvus Glaive is, in my opinion, a very criminally underrated card. And I know the build that you shared with me, you and I share the same sentiments. So we're going to talk about it and take a look at the deck that brought you to #1 in the world. And I love how you also presented this, because you teased us for a day first, which is a very content creator style thing to do. And you've been, as you said, you've been active in Marvel Snap now for over a year. You're a high level competitive player, to say the minimum, and not a very large Twitter following. But then you make a post talking about your secret Thanos deck that you took to #1, tagging Braude, who's many people know from the creator community and from social media. And you come forward and saying, you know what, it's okay. I have a deck that took me to #1, and it's Thanos in some way, shape, or form. But if I get to 500 followers, I'll go ahead and share the deck. And in the span of 16 hours, you went from, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was like 100 followers to now 576 followers, like that. Like, great job from a social media standpoint. I have to give you compliments. But let's talk the deck. Let's talk and take a look through how you got to this decision, because you and I are both in agreement about Corvus Glaive and the value that he brings right now in Marvel Snap. So I'm going to put it up on screen because you shared it about 3 hours ago from the time of this post. This is your crazy Corvus Thanos deck. It's Jeff, Mobius, Hope Summers, Corvus Glaive, Shang-Chi, Vision, Mockingbird, Blob, Hela, Thanos, Red Hulk, and Magneto. So let's talk through a couple of pieces in the deck in particular, because some people, for example, one of the things that jumps out to me, of course, is going to be the big obvious Corvus Glaive and Hela. And I want to talk to, why did you evolve the current version of Thanos into this semi-miniature discard package specifically?
Because after I change Green Stone, Thanos didn't have too much mana. He always got too much high cost cards.
Yep.
And he won't ramp. That's why I put Corvus here. And Corvus with Hela is best, I think, synergy in game. On turn 5, you can play Hela, discard she, and you destroy opponent board.
Yeah, you can absolutely throw your opponent off due to Corvus Glaive,
Yeah.
because one of the things I know I loved about it, after we talked this morning prior to stream, tried a couple of, like, in my head, a couple of the lines, and like, okay, I can see this play into this play, and Corvus Glaive feels so strong, specifically because, as I know you know, and many people who are learning Thanos, even now in this current meta, having Thanos in your hand never feels good, except for the fact that he is basically free to discard, because Thanos
Yeah.
is still more about the stones than it is about actual Thanos, and the threat of Hela with the unpredictability of even bringing back 2 stones, that makes Hela go from a 6/6 to a 6/10, and that's still pretty good value if you ended up needing
Yeah.
to really pull that kind of a line. So I love the idea of using Corvus Glaive in it. I've done something similar, and I shared with you my version that I even talked about it on the podcast, because I love the idea of what Corvus Glaive can present out there. I did a build that was no Hela because I felt like it wasn't even truly necessary, because you want to get all the big guys out there, and you're doing exactly that with Corvus Glaive, and then they're always going to be scared about the unpredictability of turn 6. So I guess my next question is, when do you choose to go with a big 6-cost card like Blob, Red Hulk, Magneto, etc., versus needing to choose to play Hela specifically, if you had to make a choice between, like, I could do either, both could be my win condition, why are you choosing Hela, and why are you choosing a different large card at the end?
I prefer play Hela on last turn. Turn 5, 6, I prefer to put big cards like
Hela 5,
Magneto,
okay.
Thanos, yeah, and I prefer play Hela on turn 6 or 7 if I don't know this location name.
Limbo.
Yeah, Limbo.
Yeah.
You always have choice. You have or Corvus or Hope Summers. You can play on turn 3 with turn 4 you play stones, then you play big cards, big, and last turn I prefer play Mockingbird for 0 mana and something big. Hello, one
I
second.
I think one of the big things as I look into it too is the idea of playing Hela out because of Hope Summers or Corvus Glaive. You have 2 options there specifically to bring you to ramping Hela out early to give you that big cost card to play with, hopefully a freer or a very cheap Mockingbird on turn 6 or turn 7. So I guess my question is, why decide go with Jeff the Baby Landshark versus another ramping mana option, for example, like a Psylocke, which we used to see in many different Thanos builds?
Because Jeff have good synergy with Hope Summers. You can put in this location and move then and take 1 mana for next turn. It's better than Psylocke. Psylocke only 2/1 and Jeff it's 2/3. It's best 2-cost card, I think. You can play Jeff in every deck.
Yeah.
You can put him where you want.
Yeah, he's so loved, which is why I'm already getting yelled at on Twitter, because I could see them eventually making Jeff a 2/2 just because he's that good.
Yeah.
But outside of that lovely conversation, let's focus a couple of the other pieces here, because there's one other particular choice that I want to talk about, because we've been looking at the newest Series 5 card at the time of this recording, which is Red Hulk. And Red Hulk, of
Yeah.
course, in these big giant decks makes a hell of a lot of sense. He's almost always a minimum 615 because it's very rare
Yeah.
that right from turn one, your opponent is always on perfect curve, no mana wasted. And even still, he's still a 611. But you also still do have Blob in this deck. And a lot of people have been substituting Blob in or Red Hulk in. And if you don't have Blob, you do have Red Hulk. It's kind of the more flexible version depending on the type of deck. Why keep both of them in this deck versus looking at that ramp synergy like you were talking about and play something like Scar?
Scar, he plays very bad right now because too much Mobius in meta. Scar always cost 6 and got only 11 power. So Red Hulk, it's more better. He always up their power.
Mm-hmm.
And I think before release, I think Red Hulk is something like seems ordinary for me. But after release, when I build deck, I didn't get Red Hulk, and I see that I need him in my deck.
Yeah, I mean, he's
I
scary.
bought it for 6,000 tokens. Yeah, and it's very good.
Yeah,
In
he's
this deck,
definitely a good investment for
crash.
6,000 tokens. I agree.
Yeah, he crash game right now. Now every deck play Red Hulk. So he always more than 20
Yeah.
power.
Oh, very, very consistently 19, 23 power, like without even trying. It's incredibly regular.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask on behalf of all of the listeners and the chat that are here on the live stream that are already asking about it. Because they're gonna see certain cards in here and they're gonna say substitute for da da da. So let's kind of look at the deck a little bit more refined in very specific instances. If there were any substitutions that you would suggest for the deck, first off, on any card, like you would say, oh, this is flexible or this is flexible, which would you say is probably the most flexible card in this deck and why, first off?
I can say this. All cards, every deck, what I create, you can change cards in this deck, but you can change, but your win rate percentage would be lower.
Agreed.
I don't even know what I can change in this deck. It's like perfect vision of this deck for me. I got very very good win streak with this deck. Yeah.
It is very much it's a very loaded deck. It's a deck that if you take a look, you see Mobius, you see the Season Pass and Hope Summers, you know, Series 5 Corvus Glaive, Series 5 Mockingbird, Series 5 Blob, Series 5 Thanos, Series 5 Red Hulk. Like it's a big expensive deck. And I know that brings up a lot of the conversation about pay to win, which I hear a lot of the community talk about that. Oh, you have to pay to win to get all these cards, and if you don't get Red Hulk, it's impossible to do well. I still disagree with Marvel Snap being considered a pay to win game, but I also can respect the fact that certain players access cards at different rates of time based on their activity or their financial situation. So, because I've always agreed that Marvel Snap is only pay to accelerate, not pay to win. So that's why I ask about substitutions, because, for example, certain people may not get Blob or may not have gotten Blob on his release, or maybe just can't get Red Hulk because they're saving up for, let's say, Valentina in a couple of weeks. Because with this deck, I think, to me, if I'm looking at it and playing it, you know, the spice of this deck is definitely, you know, Corvus Glaive in particular, because of Hela. You know, Hela is much more accessible. It's a Series 3 card. And, you know, I've run versions without Hela. And just the fear of Hela is sometimes enough to get people to back away, because they just don't know, do you have it or do you not? And that works great on ladder in particular, versus in Conquest, where, you know, you could go 8 or 9 rounds and never show your Hela. And the longer those games go, the more likely your opponent says, wait, maybe they're probably not running Hela. There's no way. We've seen all 12 cards. Now I don't have to worry about that fear. It actually becomes a bad thing over time. But on ladder, Hela's actually, in my opinion, kind of optional, because it's enough to scare people, whether you have it or not.
Yeah, you need to have Hela.
You think it's mandatory? You think it's a definite 911 must have Hela at all times?
Power. Yeah, there's a lot of power with Hela.
You're the expert, clearly. You've got it to number 1.
Hela, yeah. You can discard Hela and keep playing. Yeah, you've got on turn 5 6 mana, and you can put big cards. It's
True.
okay. Yeah, if you discard Hela, it's not lose. You always can win. It's okay.
That's fair.
If
That's
you
fair.
don't have Corvus, you play Hope Summers and put stones, and play big cards, stones, to crush your opponents. Yeah, Mobiles always help with Destroy, Pixie, Sierra, too much Sierra right now.
That's fair. That's fair. What about, so let's look at it from a competitive standpoint. You're on ladder, or you're going into Conquest, whichever it may be, as your favorite game mode, and you go in and you think, wait a minute, I know it's turn 2, and I know I'm going up against Destroy, for example, right? Let's take a look at a couple of major opponent archetypes and think about which direction you start thinking gameplay-wise. Like, if you know you're going up against a Loki deck, how does that change your strategy more often? What are you hoping to have be your line to victory if you know you're playing, let's say, Loki first, for example?
I start drawing too much draw to reach my Mobius to play him, and Loki suck after this. Always.
Draw like hell until you get Mobius. Got it.
Yeah, I always prefer drawing. Every matchup, I prefer drawing. I can skip turn 1, but on turn 2 I start drawing every time. I prefer play Corvus turn 3, no, turn 4 if I don't have Hela in hand. I prefer play Corvus on turn 4 and draw with stone then to get Hela.
Got it.
Earlier before game finish.
So then let's look at another major competitor, right? Silky Smooth is a deck that is really rising into the competitive nature because of the return of Angela. And we're going to see a lot of Angela, you know, scaling focused decks. How do you see you running your deck up against a deck that scales, like something like Silky Smooth, for example, which can also interfere with your game plans?
I didn't care about this card, Angela. Yeah, I can interrupt this location with 2 big cards if she's big. You can always, if you have good discard with Corvus, you can play 2 big cards and Hela plus 2 big cards you always win with
Mhm.
this situation. Yeah. Move decks for me, it's not a problem.
Okay.
I hate only one archetype. It's destroy.
So
I never
then,
understand what he should play. Zola or now or Death.
right. That
It's
was actually going to be one in
always
particular.
random. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
because
play against now and Death and lose for Zola and
it's interesting because Destroy is such a unique deck, in my opinion, to go up against as a Thanos player. Because
yeah.
I always feel like you end up there's more change I think that has to happen when you end up facing a destroy deck than any other deck, including Loki, which is such a huge competitor in my opinion, because
Yeah.
I feel like now you're looking at your stones differently. Now you're looking at the timing of all of your big cards differently. So for a
Mhm.
novice player who's just learning Thanos, let's say, for example, you have most of the cards to play this or any other Thanos deck, going up against Destroy in particular, where you were always fearful of Shang-Chi, you're fearful of Killmonger in particular now more than anything else, are you looking to give or throw priority, and why more often than not with those decks? And I'm asking these questions on behalf of the non-competitive player base who are learning these decks for the first time and seeing these big posts like yourself. Oh my God, this is a #1 deck in the world. It got me to #1, but every pilot is different. So I think it's important to sometimes talk about what we'll call to a lot of people the obvious, but to many others the not. So destroy is probably a big problem for this deck. How do you like to use your priority with it?
I always play from the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it all comes with experience. You need to play, and you more understand the game. I can't I can't explain in what situation you need initiative, in what no. You always need to check what your opponents play and think what he should play next turn. And in this situation, you think, oh, I have Shang-Chi, I need to kill his now. I should give him initiative or something like this.
Mm-hmm. What do you end up seeing being the biggest problem with this deck? Like, what do you struggle against the most, typically?
Uh,
Like your most difficult
Phoen-
matchup?
I hate Phoenix Force. Yeah, deck
Phoenix Force?
so
Okay.
hard to me. Yeah. Uh,
Because of
cause
the unpredictability or because of just the sheer power?
power. Shang-Chi always bet against Phoenix Force. You can't kill any cards
Of
in
course.
Phoenix Force deck. Yeah, multiply man with Phoenix Force destroy Thanos every time. Against this deck in previous seasons, I got Professor X and
Mhm.
Elios. Yeah, Professor X, it's one card for win against Phoenix Force. You take initiative and place Professor X in location where multiply men sit. You block lane, and now you have only one lane to win. Easy. But in this deck, I can't play Professor X. It's only about big cards. Yeah.
The Professor X conversation is interesting because of the changes. Did the changes to Thanos in hand or to the Time Stone specifically change you away from your past version that wasn't Corvus Glaive and Hela? Were it those changes, or was there any other specific moment that made you say this is the type of build I should run?
Yeah, I play Corvus in this deck only because of Thanos start in hand. Always
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
best card to discard. target to discard.
It's going to be
Yeah.
interesting to see how they keep looking at Thanos when they start seeing these kinds of conversations happen again, where, hey, we nerfed Thanos into the ground. Person takes Thanos deck to number 1. Okay, we did it
Yeah.
again. Person takes Thanos deck to number 1. Here's this big tournament. Winning deck is a Thanos deck. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing how strong Thanos is and flexible Thanos is, no matter what they're doing to it, because players like yourself are finding
Yeah.
ways to still be able to play around what that deck can do, no matter what they change to it. So I'll ask the
Yeah.
same way, because there's a constant conversation about, okay, we need Thanos's stones, for example, to be more about Thanos. If there was a stone that you'd have to say is the most important stone in this deck, this specific type of build, which is the most important stone for you and why?
Most important.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe orange.
Soulstone.
Most,
Wow.
yeah.
That's a surprise.
Most
Good surprise.
most strongest stone in Thanos deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Green stone always for draw right now. Or
You
not
think it's a.
not too much situation. You can play green stone to play Thanos on turn 5. Maybe only with hot location last day. I play Greenstone on Kamartash, yeah.
Yep.
Location. Yeah, and you can play tennis on turn 5. It's only one way to use Greenstone. Yeah, another situation, Greenstone suck. But you can draw with him. It's okay, no
Yeah.
problem.
Card draw is card draw.
Yeah, before I don't want to share my deck before, because when all people play this deck, it's always nerfed. I think
It's
Thanos.
inevitable, just like Thanos.
Yeah.
Thanos is going to constantly find a way through, like you did, and the devs have already discussed that they are still looking at other things that they can do to make Thanos' stones more about Thanos and less about the stones, because that's very clear that that's how this deck also runs too, where you want to draw cards, you want to then throw away your cards with Corvus Glaive, you want to bring them back early on turn 5 with Hela, and then also do a big thing on turn 6, maybe even turn 7 if it's a limbo match. So this deck is all about, to me, it feels like fill your hand, then dump a little bit out of your hand, and then you can do big thing as your turn 5, turn 6 to survive with all of that extra flexible mana that you're working with because of Hope Summers and Corvus Glaive, etc.
Yeah, I love Thanos because you can move cards with stone. You can draw cards. You can change location. You have all in one deck.
Yeah,
very good.
Incredibly flexible.
That's why Thanos best. That's why Thanos best deck right now. I think revoke Thanos with another ability maybe with stones could be okay. Why not? We should see.
Personal question on it. When was the last time you played a non-Thanos deck, or have you just been all Thanos all day for forever since you could?
I started the season playing on the Loki with Zemo. Yeah. When I reach Infinity, I continue to play Loki, but it became more difficult. Everyone playing Mobius and Hela. I lost first place and couldn't move for a few days. Then I decided to return to my favorite archetype. Yeah, it's Thanos. And now, all okay.
And now you're at, I mean, according to your most recent Twitter post from earlier, you're at 9,300 snap points at the moment, which is just insane. And doing it with Thanos in this meta is just wild to me, which is why I reached out to you this morning, because I wanted to talk a little bit about this deck, talk a little bit about, you know, how you've crafted it and what the reasons were and what some of the play lines were. And I hope this conversation also, you know, brings to light the fact that Thanos is just that flexible, because like you said, it's very likely that we see further changes to Thanos in the future. The devs have talked about it, and then players like yourself keep finding ways to break the deck. Like it's amazing. It's amazing how strong and resilient the deck is. And I just want to, you know, thank you also for just sharing it with us from a competitive aspect, because I know here on the live stream, I'm now going to play this deck for like the next hour at least until US Agent comes out, and then we can test him for probably 10 minutes and then realize it's still bad, and then go back to this deck, because this is exciting to see Corvus Glaive be so strong in this style of deck. Is there anything that you want to shout out that's incredibly important about the deck that people may not realize?
I don't know. If you have Hela, don't be scared to play Corvus.
Don't be scared to play Corvus if you have Hela.
Yeah, it's important tip. You need to start ramp, to play earlier your big cards. Yeah.
If it's
that's all.
here's an interesting question too.
Understand this deck.
Sorry, say that again. My apologies.
Oh, sorry.
Because I look at the deck and I have one interesting question too. It's turn 3. You have Hope, Corvus, and Mobius all in your hand. Which is the most important to play on turn 3?
If you didn't have Hela in hand?
With or without Hela, both situations. With Hela, without Hela.
Okay. I prefer play Corvus. If you play against Loki, I will play turn 3 Mobius. Yeah. And then turn 4 I play Corvus with Stone. Something like this. Yeah. Hope I play only if I didn't have Corvus in hand. Yeah. It's another
Hope
way
is the
to
backup
win.
plan. Got it.
Yeah. If you have too much stones in hand, you draw good. You can play Hope on turn 3, and then you play Stone or 3 stones. Yeah, to drawing. Maybe on turn 5, I won't try this, but never happened. Turn 5, you can play 3 cards on Hope Summers, and then on turn 6, you play Corvus with Hela. Looks good.
Oh, that's just mean. And I love it. Hope Summers down, turn 5, play 3 stones onto Hope Summers. Turn 6, Corvus into Hela. Oh, with 8 energy. With 9 energy, excuse me. Like, that's genius and awful all at the same time. And I love that strategy. And I am going to try to make that happen, because that is going to be a stupid, amazing moment if that does.
For me, it's maybe happen only one time. Yeah.
You only need it once to remember it, clearly, because that's a great idea. That's a great line. I remember those who were running, what was it? It was Magic into Wave on turn 6, and then play 2 4-drops back to back. So you'd play your MODOK and Hela at the same time on turn 7, because you played Wave plus Psylocke. That's what it was. It was Wave plus Psylocke on turn 6 after a Magic was dropped, and then you could play both of them 1-2 just to surprise them. That's what that feels like to me. That type of fear that deck can install. But man, I love that idea. That's definitely a lot of fun. Dropping 3 stones onto Hope Summers on turn 5, and then Corvus into Hela on turn 6, because you have 9 energy to work with. That's great. And I hate that that's a real thing.
Yeah, maybe you can play more Mockingbird for 0 mana.
Yeah. Oh, and Mockingbird too. My God. Yeah. Chances are, if you're putting down
Yeah.
3 stones, then there's a pretty good chance that in the first couple of turns, you've probably got the stones out of your hand anyway. The other stones, at least 2 other stones. Yeah. Wow.
But sometimes I prefer play Hela on turn 5. If you have best discard cards, to know to have understanding what location I should amplify next turn. Yeah.
How much do you fear Shang-Chi with this deck? Because as I'm looking at it, technically it's only 4 out of the 18 cards that are going to be over, you know, Shang-Chi range. As someone who plays this deck regularly, are you scared of Shang-Chi, or do you just go over the top in all 3 lanes that regularly that you feel comfortable?
If I scared about Shang-Chi, I put in this location Hela, Vision, Corvus to keep power here in every situation. Sometimes I bite up my opponents to use Shang-Chi in what location I want. I put Red Hulk on 5, and then I put Mockingbird in another location and Blob or Hela or something like this.
Yeah.
I prefer bite opponent to play Shang-Chi in what location I want.
Yeah, just get them to bait over, like, hey,
Yeah.
I want you to hit this. Please use your Shang-Chi over here because I'm going to stack everything else, and that's 4 mana, done. And then I'm just going to load the other 2 lanes and barely keep over. I like that idea too. Stay over the top.
Yeah.
This is
this is
an exciting and scary thing that this deck is about to explode all over Marvel Snap because of you. And I appreciate that, because it then starts to also produce more conversation about all of the cards in this deck. Does this open up conversation for Corvus Glaive and Hela? Does this open up conversation about Red Hulk? Does this open up conversation about Thanos and his stones? I'm curious what people are going to say as they see this deck start to emerge more in ladder and in ranked mode and in conquest, and how difficult is it to go up against it, which normally leads to people whining and complaining on the internet, because that's how gaming works. But I'm curious to see how the community reacts to seeing this deck from a success standpoint from your end. Other people start to pilot it. Does this become an easy deck for the community that becomes too powerful, or is this a deck that just watches a whole bunch of numbers tank because other people are piloting the deck poorly, and then only the high-skilled players do well with it? You know, kind of like Loki used to be, where Loki, if you understood Loki really, really well, it was super competitive in its top performance. But if you looked at the numbers overall, it was a lot of people didn't understand how to play the deck. I'm curious to see how the community reacts to this build now, because of how flexible it is, both with the discard line, the movement line, the Thanos line, the big card line. There's just so many different ways to play this. This is going to be a lot of fun, Crazy, to see this Corvus Thanos deck take over. So I want to say thank you for introducing it to us and revealing to the world. And I invite everyone also to go to Twitter. Make sure you follow. Please head on over. I have it on the screen as well right now. Go take a look. He's got his big number 1 right there as his banner, just entering Twitter. He's already at 579 followers. Let's get that number as high as possible. Show him support. He's always being featured in all of these different events, different tournaments. You've seen the name Crazy before. You're going to continue to see the name Crazy more and more and more. So, Max, thank you. Thank you so much for talking about this with me here today. This is going to be up on YouTube. I can't wait to see the comments on this, and hang out here in the live stream for a little while too. We're going to play the deck, like I said. I'd love to have you in the chat, also talking through your thoughts too, because I know you don't stream right now. That's not not on your regular repertoire, but I do see you pop up quite often into chats too. So I appreciate you very much. Thank you so much for doing this. It's been very eye-opening, at least to me.
Thank you for you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. If you enjoyed today's video, today's moment in conversation with Crazy, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below. My name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming, and good luck out there.